touchdown, Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. Hottest show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back into the process. Crimson Tide Recruiting. I am your host, Justin Smith, the Director of Recruiting for Touchdown Alabama. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for another episode of the process. The first thing I need you to do is hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. Subscribers, hit that notification bell, be notified when we drop content on our YouTube channel. I'm here each week to break down the latest in Crimson Tide football recruiting news, and I have a lot of updates to provide as I was able to travel to Georgia over the weekend to Carrollton High School to check out the Under Armour Next Camp Atlanta. Technically not really Atlanta, but at Carrollton High School in Carrollton, Georgia. Had an opportunity to see some of the Crimson Tide's top targets in multiple recruiting classes, including some of the top targets in the 2024 recruiting class. I'm talking about some priority targets for the Crimson Tide, guys who will actually be on the campus of the University of Alabama this weekend when the Crimson Tide hosts another Junior Day event on March 4th. So I'm going to start today's show by talking about one of those priority targets who was at that particular camp, and I'm talking about four-star offensive lineman Daniel Calhoun out of Georgia, one of the top offensive linemen in the 2024 recruiting class, projected to be a tackle at the next level. Of course, this is a 6'6" offensive lineman who has been getting recruited by Alabama for quite some time now. I think he has visited Tuscaloosa probably more than any other school recruiting him. I'm pretty sure he's been to Tuscaloosa about 3 or 4 times since picking up an offer from the Crimson Tide, including time during the football season to watch the Crimson Tide play. So he is really familiar with Tuscaloosa. He's really familiar with the Crimson Tide's offensive line coach, Eric Wolford. He has locked in multiple official visits. Like I said, I feel Calhoun is a priority target for the Crimson Tide. He will have a very busy June as he would take multiple official visits. The first weekend in June, he will visit Georgia officially. He will visit Alabama officially during the second weekend in June. He will visit Tennessee during the third weekend, and he will also visit Tennessee during the third weekend. He will visit Texas during the last weekend in June. So he has a busy June, and like I always say, and we always see this consistently with the way that the recruiting calendar is set up at the moment. We see guys start to take all of their official visits in June, knock all of them out, and commit in July or August, commit before their senior season begins. And like similar to the Crimson Tide's 2023 recruiting class, we saw the Crimson Tide have a huge June and July because of it. So that is something that we could see happen again, and Daniel Calhoun is going to be a guy to watch. He was very impressive at that camp. Did not lose any of his one-on-ones, as you guys can see. We're able to provide you guys footage. That footage will be provided throughout this show. Of course, that footage was captured by our producer here at Touchdown Alabama, John Ivory. But Calhoun will officially visit the Crimson Tide during the second weekend in June. We'll also take official visits to Georgia, Texas, and Tennessee. One of the Crimson Tide's other top targets who was in attendance, he's a guy who you may not have heard much of because he just got an offer from the Crimson Tide on February 1st, but I think he is going to become a pretty high priority for the Crimson Tide, just taking a look at what he brings to the table. And I'm talking about Jordan Ross, a product of Vestavia Hills High School in Vestavia, Alabama. You're talking about a 6'4", 220-pound edge rusher who clocked in a 4.40 yard dash at that Under Armour event over the weekend, and he was impressive throughout. Talking about looking very smooth throughout his drill works, looking very explosive throughout drill work, as well as also that explosiveness translated over to the one-on-one portion where he did have a couple of wins over there as well. He has that length the Crimson Tide are going to consistently go after at that edge rusher outside linebacker position in terms of him being 6'4", weighing approximately 220 pounds. He has a really nice frame. He looked at really natural going through those drills. In terms of his bending ability, looked really natural, bending the corner on the bags during those drills. So overall, Jordan Ross really was very impressive on Sunday. Like I said, he will be in Tuscaloosa on this weekend to take an unofficial visit to the Crimson Tide. Of course, the Tide offered him in February. Said that offer at the beginning of this month, of course. He said the offer shocked him. He said it came pretty suddenly. He didn't expect to get an offer from the Crimson Tide. He was not in heavy contact with them or anything, but he has been in heavy contact with multiple SEC programs who we feel are standing out to him at the moment, who have an edge over Alabama, who's going to come into his recruitment a little bit later than these programs. And those programs are Georgia, Tennessee. He's looking at South Carolina. He's also looking at Auburn. Those schools have been involved in this recruitment a little bit longer than Alabama. Of course, he's going to get to Tuscaloosa this weekend. A great visit. Could change things, but those teams right now have a edge over the Crimson Tide, at least in Jordan Ross's recruitment as he sees things. And in his own words, he's still trying to figure out things with Alabama at the moment, but he has a heavy interest in Georgia. Said he loves Georgia's defense. He's actually pretty sure he's going to take an official visit to Georgia this summer, so we can see if the Crimson Tide can make up some ground with Jordan Ross, build their relationship with him. Like I said, I think he's going to be one of the more talented, physically gifted edge rushers in this 2024 recruiting classes. We're actually going to switch gears here for a second, and we're going to go back to some more 2024 guys, but we're going to talk about one of the Crimson Tide's 2025 commits who was in attendance. He's the only 2025 commit for the Crimson Tide, and he was in attendance for the camp as well. And I'm talking about Ryan Williams out of Saraland High School in Alabama. What's not to like about Williams? I mean, he's the first sophomore to win Mr. Football inside the state of Alabama, and he stole the show. His show travels, his game travels, went to Georgia and showed why he was the first sophomore to win that award against some of the best defensive backs and best defensive back recruits inside the states of Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, North, South Carolina, just some of the surrounding states who were in attendance for that camp. And like I said, Williams was as advertised, man. This was my first time actually watching him play, and he just seemed to be a step ahead of all of the defensive backs, just quickly creating separations with his route. He was able to go up and get the football. It looked like everybody else was moving in slow motion and was guarding him at times, but Ryan Williams was really impressive. Had an opportunity to catch up with him after the camp, discussed his decision to commit to the Crimson Tide, told me committed to them because of that iron sharpened iron culture at Alabama. Of course, that competitive nature that goes into everything that Alabama does in terms of them competing against one another for everybody to get better from a day-to-day basis. Another question I asked him was about the height, because this is a kid who's projected to be a 5-star wide receiver, possibly the number 1 wide receiver in the 2025 recruiting class. Asked him, how are you handling the hype? How do you remain humble with all that hype around you? You winning Mr. Football as a sophomore inside the state. He said he just keeps in mind that he knows even though the hype is there, he knows that he's not the best that he can be. He knows there are areas of his game that he needs to work on. He knows that he is not a complete product, so he keeps that at the forefront in terms of him striving to get better. But the Crimson Tide's wide receiver, the future of that wide receiver room is in really good hands with Ryan Williams. Coming up, of course, 2025 kid, long way to go in this recruitment. A lot of teams are going to push for him as time goes on. I don't expect Auburn to go anywhere. His dad actually was a football player at Auburn, so I don't expect the Tigers to go anywhere, as they will continue to try to push for Williams in the future. But now we're going to transition back to the 2024 recruiting class, but we're not going to go away from Alabama commits, as we're going to talk about Sterling Dixon, who was actually in attendance for the event as well, and he won the MVP award for the defensive line portion. Although he's listed as a linebacker, he basically participated in the camp as a defensive end or edge rusher. The Crimson Tide previously have consistently liked him at inside linebacker. They still seem to like him there, but he has that position versatility and he has that length of an edge rusher, so he has the opportunity to possibly be an outside guy or an inside linebacker, off the ball linebacker in the future. He's preparing to play both at the next level, but he looked really good throughout the camp. Like I said, he won the MVP award. He was consistent throughout the camp. Went up against one of the top tackles in the 2025 class, and it was a close battle when they did their one-on-ones. I should talk about that kid a little later, but Sterling Dixon, really impressive. I continue to like what he is doing in terms of his improvement, in terms of him getting better, in terms of him getting stronger, continuing to add on weight as well. But he's actually out recruiting for the Crimson Tide. As looks, he's going to try to take on that responsibility like we've seen other top Alabama commits do in the past. And he had his eyes on a couple of guys, including the guy I talked about earlier, and Daniel Calhoun, the 4-star offensive lineman out of Georgia. He had his eyes on him. Had his eyes on the guy we'll talk about a little later, Malik Blockton, a 4-star DN out of Pike Road High School in Pike Road, Alabama, one of the Crimson Tide's 2024 in-state defensive lineman targets. So Sterling Dixon was putting in work on this weekend for the Crimson Tide. So it looks like he's going to put on the recruiting hat. Of course, a lot of coaching changes have happened since his commitment to the Crimson Tide. The Tide have lost Pete Golding, Charles Kelly, of course. Also recently lost Austin Armstrong as he left the Crimson Tide to become the defensive coordinator for the Florida Gators. The Crimson Tide have a new linebacker coach. Sterling Dixon is excited about learning about him and excited about meeting him and getting to know him in the future. But he remains locked in with the Crimson Tide. Said he plans to be in Tuscaloosa as much as possible because he knows that is where he wants to be in the future. That he knows Alabama is where he wants to play in the future, and that is why he has his recruiting hat on for the Crimson Tide. I'm going to continue to stay on this camp because, like I said, this camp was loaded. We're basically going to talk about all guys from this camp on this episode. The next guy is a 4-star wide receiver out of Central Phoenix City High School in Phoenix City, Alabama. A 6'3" wide receiver who put on a show. If there was a wide receiver who was just as impressive as Ryan Williams over the weekend, it was Cameron Coleman. I'm talking about a kid who went up and got the football, got created separation with some nasty, effective routes. Like I said, went up and got the football with that 6'3" frame. You see him leaving defenders in the dust with the ability to change direction on his routes, get out of his breaks, just stop on a dime and get back to the football. Cameron Coleman was really impressive. His stock is continuing to rise at the moment. You're going to see on multiple recruiting sites, he's just jumping up recruiting boards. You're going to see his offer list continue to grow. I think he added a couple of offers over the last couple of days. When kids go to this Under Armour camp, most of the Power 5 programs in the country, including Alabama, get an opportunity to get the film from Under Armour. So they get to see this film, they get to evaluate this film. And a lot of guys gain offers from this film, or some of their offers may turn committable when they watch this type of film after seeing them in basically a camp setting. And Coleman was really impressive. He does not know when he will actually visit Alabama, but he does want to visit Tuscaloosa in the future. His recruitment is still in the earlier stages compared to some other guys as offers continue to come in for him, because some guys are just starting to get all these big offers. Some guys have had big offers all the time. Of course, he had some big offers early on as well, but he's still getting some bigger ones now with like teams like Alabama and Georgia and on Cameron Coleman. So we'll see how that plays out with him once he gets the opportunity to get a hold of some visit dates and gets things set in place. But I think he's going to be one of the top wide receivers in this 2024 recruiting class. Of course, the Tide have not had a great track record of pulling in wide receivers from Central Phoenix City. They will hopefully try to change that with their eyes on Cameron Coleman. We'll see how that plays out. Another top prospect who was at the camp over the weekend was Tevis Metcalf out of Pinson Valley High School in Pinson, Alabama. We're actually taking an unofficial visit to Alabama on this weekend, this Sunday for the Crimson Tide Junior Day. This Saturday for the Crimson Tide Junior Day. I think I said Sunday earlier, but Saturday, March 4th, it's Crimson Tide's Junior Day. If I said Sunday earlier, but Saturday is the Crimson Tide's Junior Day, March 4th. It will be in Tuscaloosa on March 4th for the Crimson Tide Junior Day. Will actually be in Auburn on the day before that, Friday, March 3rd, for a big Auburn recruiting event. A lot of recruits will be in Auburn as well, and Tevis Metcalf will be one of those guys. He won the defensive back MVP award. Now, I've seen this guy work out privately before, actually under former Alabama wide receiver Mike McCoy, and he's always been impressive in terms of his movement, in terms of his hip flexibility, his ability to change direction, his ability to jump routes. As you guys can see, his ability to turn and run with wide receivers, be comfortable and be confident in his technique, just knows where he's at on the field at all times. He's one of those kids, he's not going to cause a pass interference because he's not confident. He's not going to be out of position. He's not going to feel that he's out of position because he's confident in his technique, and that was on display throughout that Saturday event, and that Sunday event, and he was able to get multiple big plays, catch a couple of interceptions, and take on that defensive back MVP award. Like I said, Tevis Metcalf will be on the campus of the University of Alabama on Saturday. Does not have an offer from the Crimson Tide. Said an offer from them would be big, just based on them being inside his home state of Alabama, of course, and also just the reputation of Alabama with all the national championships and everything. I think Metcalf is a guy to keep your eyes on. I'm high on him as probably one of the best career cornerbacks inside the state of Alabama when it comes to this 2024 recruiting class. Malik Blockton is a guy who I talked about earlier. We're going to discuss him now. Blockton is a guy who Dixon was recruiting as well. Blockton, 4-star defensive lineman out of Pike Road High School in Pike Road, Alabama, had a huge January, picking up multiple offers. When you get offers from Alabama and Georgia in the same month, you had a huge month on the recruiting trail in terms of the state of college football at the moment. He picked up both of those offers. Of course, Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide defensive line coach Freddie Roach actually visited Pike Road High School, continued to show interest in Malik Blockton and a couple of his teammates. Blockton was impressive at the camp as well, showing his ability to bend, was physical during the one-on-ones. I think he's a guy who is just a big, strong defensive lineman. Not the most explosive guy off of the snap, but this is a guy who's just hard to block because he's so strong. He moves really well after the snap, and he was really impressive throughout the year. I've seen him play 2 times this past season. Actually, I've seen him 3 times throughout his high school career, but I saw him 2 times. One time against Carver Montgomery, and the other time against Eufaula High School, and he was impressive every time I saw him this season. It did not surprise me that his offer list just exploded in January. We'll be in Auburn on Friday. Plans to be in Tuscaloosa at some point in March. I'm not sure if it's going to be this weekend. He said he does not have a visit plan at the moment. Wouldn't surprise me if he just found a way to Tuscaloosa on Saturday, but he has a visit locked into Auburn on Friday. His brother is actually a senior defensive lineman for the Auburn Tigers, but he has a lot of interest in the Crimson Tide at the moment. Said his relationship with Alabama's defensive line coach Freddie Roach has continued to grow since the Tide have offered him. Said he actually talked to Freddie Roach a couple of days before he went to this camp on Sunday. Said he just continued to build a relationship with him and other members of Alabama's coaching staff. Like I said, similar to a lot of guys, Blockton is a guy to pay attention to. And he's one of those guys who is going to fit into that same mold of James Smith, Quay Russaw, Curtis Perry. Basically, all those guys are from the Montgomery, that Pike Road area, and all of them did the same thing. Curtis Perry, Russaw, and Smith waited all the way to signing day to make a decision. Blockton said that is something that he could do. He's looking at possibly making a decision during the football season, or he could possibly wait all the way to National Signing Day. So we'll see what happens with Blockton, see if he will follow in the footsteps of some of those Montgomery area guys and Madhouse training guys, as well as he trains with Madhouse training out of Montgomery, the same trainers who trained Russaw, Smith, and Perry. So Blockton is a guy just continue to keep your eyes on as well. We're going to close today's show out by talking about a couple of 2025 guys, as like I said, multiple guys from multiple recruiting classes that was at this event, including the number 1 2025 recruit in the country and the number 1 offensive tackle prospect in the country, and David Sanders, who had a lot of great things to say about the Crimson Tide. He basically lit up when he was asked about the Crimson Tide by reporters, saying that, of course, Alabama is Alabama. Basically, you hear that a lot of time from recruits, just to give Alabama the respect in terms of the dynasty that they have built. Talked about camping, and Tuscaloosa is actually looking at returning to Alabama during the Crimson Tide's spring game. A-Day actually looking to get back to Tuscaloosa. And Sanders was impressive, talking about a 6'6", 6'7" offensive lineman. I think he's about 260, 270-ish right now. He definitely does not have a lot of body fat, you guys can see, actually going up against the Crimson Tide's linebacker commit Sterling Dixon. It was good on good here. I'm talking about it was just a good rep. I think it was one of the best reps in terms of being an even rep as we've seen. So I think Sanders got the best of Dixon definitely on that first rep here. I think that's that rep. I think Dixon fell and Sanders definitely got the best of him on that. The next rep is basically it can go either way. If you can make an argument for both of them on that route, and it's basically going on Twitter as we speak. But Sanders looked really good, really mobile, moves really well. The guy was going to continue to get bigger, continue to add on some weight. Easy to see why he's the number one offense, considered by many to be the number one offensive tackle in the 2025 recruiting class. We're going to close today's show out by talking about KJ Lacey. He's going to be the last guy. Lacey's a 4-star quarterback out of Saraland High School in Alabama. He actually is Ryan Williams, Alabama's 2025 commit's teammate. He is his quarterback. He was the one that was flinging the ball all around Ryan Williams. And if you watch Williams' film, or you watch Lacey's film when he's throwing to Ryan doesn't break stride when Lacey is throwing the football. So I'm talking about this guy drop his dimes, and we know how fast Williams is, as you guys saw earlier in his film. Lacey was throwing the football around pretty well, connected with Williams actually a lot of times during this camp, during that one-on-one portion. You know, they have that natural connection with them being in the same grade, being in the same recruiting class, and both going to Saraland High School and winning a 6A state championship together. Alabama actually offered Lacey recently. The Crimson Tide's new offensive coordinator, Tommy Reese, was on staff when his offer went out. I think that is something that is important to know. But Lacey said it was big that he got an offer from the Crimson Tide. It feels Alabama is one of the big dogs. Of course, he's looking to get back to Tuscaloosa in April. Definitely wants to get back to Tuscaloosa during the spring, get an opportunity possibly to watch spring practice. So he's a guy who is looking forward to getting back to Tuscaloosa. But that is what I wanted to talk about on today's show. Told you guys I had a lot to get to. The Crimson Tide actually have a big recruiting weekend coming up with another Junior Day. Talk about some of the guys today who will plan to be in attendance, like Jordan Ross, like Tevis Metcalf, guys who plan to be in Tuscaloosa for the Crimson Tide Junior Day. But those are just guys who are scratching the surface. That list is very impressive when you talk about the guys who plan to be in Tuscaloosa. I'm talking about 5-star wide receivers, 5-star defensive backs. We'll have a full breakdown of that actually on another episode of The Process, hitting you out the 2 shows this week. But thank you guys so much for joining me today. As always, before you leave, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. Subscribers, hit the notification bell, be notified when we drop content on our YouTube channel. Leave here, go to touchdowналabama.com. We have content flowing from the Under Armour Next Camp Atlanta all on our website. Be sure to check that out. While you're there, be sure to pick up a subscription as well. With that subscription, you will be able to read all of our subscriber-only articles. Be sure to pick up that subscription today. Also getting the opportunity to get a printed issue of our magazine on our yearly print magazine issue. Then head over to the Apple App Store if you have an Apple device to download the Touchdown Alabama app. If you have an Android device, be sure to go to the Google Play Store to download the app as well. As always, I am Justin Smith, the Director of Recruiting for Touchdown Alabama.
Process.